Dalian is a major city and seaport of China, and the second largest city in the Liaoning province. The city has a history of being occupied by foreign powers such as Japan and Russia, who sought control of its ports. Dalian is emerging as an important port of international trade and already is an important distribution center. The city is home to the Dalian Shipbuilding Industry Company, which is the largest shipbuilding company in China. By 2006, DSIC had a revenue that succeeded 10 million RMB. The company is known for exporting ships of massive size, such as bulk carriers, tankers, and fishing vessels.
Very export-oriented. Basically, they would set up zones along the coast where they would import the what economists call the intermediate goods, basically the supplies, and then they would assemble the product in the port area and then ship it out. There's been that evolution of manufacturing in China, and again, in the early days, the emphasis was on low-skill manufacturing, clothing and shoes and toys and that sort of thing that were the kinds of things that were labor-intensive, but didn't require a whole lot of skills. Although China is trying to hold on to that low-end, low value-added kinds of production, trying to move that into the western part of the country and the more rural areas, while the coastal areas that have been competing in the marketplace and open to world competition for a while, trying to move up that value-added chain to produce higher skilled goods like building ships.
Dalian has a very well-developed aquaculture, and it exports a large percentage of seafood to other countries such as Japan and Korea.
China's actually responsible for the direct consumption of about 30% of the total catch of all seafood in the world. I just wanted to kind of point out that you change from a kind of local, I wouldn't even say local, small people fishing close to the coast to an industrialized shipping fleet meant to trawl the entire world, and you really increase the amount of fish that you can pull out of the water, and that when you do it over a 20-year period really hurts the ecology of the ocean.
Dalian was kind of had a head start because it had been a special economic zone fairly early on. Okay, again, I think we've talked about before we left, initially in 1979 there were 4 special economic zones where China would experiment with capitalism and market-based economics and with more foreign trade. Those were mostly down south. All your industrial cities, Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Northwest Pennsylvania. This is it for China. This is where industrialization started back in the 20s and 30s, especially under the Japanese. And this part of China fell behind once reform started.
During their stay in Dalian, the ISU students and faculty would stay at Liaoning Normal University, a provincial center for teacher training. Hosts from the university would give their guests a tour of Golden Pebble Beach, a geological museum which is famous for its magnificent landscape. Later that evening, Vice President Shui Ming Li and Guang Saidong, Dean of International Business College and Director of International Exchange of LNU, hosted a dinner in honor of their overseas guests. Shenyang is the capital and largest city of the Liaoning province in northeast China. The city also serves as a center of transportation and is an important industrial and commercial center for the northeast of China. Located within the city is the famous Zhongshan Square, featuring one of China's largest statues of Chairman Mao. While visiting Zhongshan Square, the students and professors were accompanied by Ryan Teppen. Ryan is an ISU student currently studying abroad at Liaoning University.
A lot of people have these fears, or they hear from other people these horror stories, and even though nothing people can say can prepare you for an experience like coming to China, it really is not as bad as people think. The worst parts are better than what people say, and the best parts are even better than people say. So I highly encourage everybody to study abroad if they can, and I think China is one of the best places to do so because more and more we're doing business with them, we are relating with them, so it's very practical from that standpoint as well. Whatever your major is, whatever you study, whatever your interests are, China will be a big player in the future. Not to mention it's a very cool and different place to come and see.
In the northern area of Shenyang is Liaoning University, one of the leading universities listed within the nation's Project 211 and affirmed by the Ministry of Education. Liaoning University has established harmonious relationships with universities across the world. Some of these universities are located within the United States and includes the University of Michigan, California State University, and of course, Indiana State University.
So right now we have 1,200 full-time international students who are studying at Liaoning University.
涵盖将近50个国家。
And they are from almost 50 countries of different 50 different countries of the world.
所以我们尽量为我们的学生提供一个多元、开放、包容的这样的一个文化环境。
So that's why we are trying to create a multi-level, compromising and openness environment for the students to study.
所以这里边这些前面摆的照片，大家就能感觉到有美国的大学，有俄罗斯的，有日本的。
And so when you look around, you can see on the wall, they put different famous universities in the world. Yeah. Some famous universities are from the United States, others are from Russia, from Japan, and from some other European countries.
Later, the ISU professors were invited to give a lecture to a Chinese classroom at the university.
Professor Singh also said, we are here on a project that we call XLED. And we call it XLED because the title is very long. It stands for Environmentally and Culturally Sustainable Local Economic Development. Professor Chambers and Professor Aldridge and myself have been working on this project for 4 or 5 years. It is a project which is not only interdisciplinary. We have the disciplines of sociology, biology, environmental studies, political science, and economics working together.
There's the Liaoning Coastal Development Belt Project. This is an allocation of resources to encourage the development of Liaoning's coast and also some of its major cities, right? Well, that dedication to the Northeast region by your government means that some funds will not be spent in other regions of the country. These things this could lead to some sort of rivalry or political situation that could leave some places bitter or angry at others.
Here is a map that's a plan for what might happen with this riverscape project. And so here is where the pond would be. And here's a sports field, and here are some other pleasure areas for people to enjoy during the weeks and on weekends. And where you go, and here's perhaps a smelly pond. So you can see why there would be some problems about this. The government has said, our local government has said, we are going to promise to make this pond look as nice as possible. We're going to promise to do everything we can to make sure it doesn't smell. We understand those problems. But this is the plan that meets the U.S. government mandate and the state of Indiana mandates. This is what we can afford. This is what we're going to do.
Beijing is the capital of the People's Republic of China and is a directly controlled municipality by the national government. In 2008, China opened its doors to the world by hosting the Olympics in Beijing, during which China won a total of 51 gold medals, more than any other nation at these games, giving the country a great source of national pride and a place in Olympic history next to the US and Russia.
However, Beijing has done quite a lot to make the city more green. All the bushes and things, they did not used to be this type of greenery. Tiananmen Square had no greenery. They added that back in the 90s. You'll see a lot of trees. Sometimes you'll see water trucks going by, just hosing down the bushes and trees to make sure they have water because Beijing's a dry place.
The traditional hutongs, with their narrow streets and courtyard-centered residential complexes, are rapidly disappearing from Chinese cityscapes. Although many of these hutongs have disappeared during the urbanization of recent decades, the Chinese government has recognized their cultural significance and has begun to renovate and preserve a few of these traditional neighborhoods, offering a glimpse of life in the capital city as it has been for generations. Beijing is renowned for its magnificent religious buildings, such as those found in the Temple of Heaven, which was visited by Ming and Qing dynasty emperors for annual ceremonies of prayer to heaven for a good harvest. Beijing contains ancient architecture which can be seen in the Forbidden City. The city served as the home of emperors and political center of the Chinese government for almost 500 years. Enormous stone walls are abundant, but none as magnificent as the Great Wall of China, which stretches across the northern part of Beijing. Nearing the end of their journey in a foreign country, the ISU students would reflect upon their experiences while touring
I can't imagine doing this on my own and not seeing all the sights that we've seen. My favorite city being Dalian. We visited a fishery there. We did a lot of sightseeing. We learned about how short but rich history they have. Beijing is probably going to be my favorite, second favorite city. The Great Wall, obviously.
I would say definitely come to China. It's a great experience. I think anybody should always have to experience a completely different culture at some time in their life. But my recommendation before you come over here is try to learn a little bit of Chinese. I really should have better immersed myself in the culture before I came over here. I feel like it would have made it a lot easier to deal with people in some situations.
After spending 18 days roving through China, the students and faculty would return home, but they would return with unforgettable memories and lessons learned from an experience truly unlike any they may have had before. It goes without saying that China is rapidly growing and evolving, but only time can tell how China will shape itself for the future.